welcome to episode 5 of the Mako Mindset Podcast. I'm Anthony, here with my beautiful wife, Nicole, and we're excited today. I'm nervous. I'm starstruck. He's going to laugh at that. But we have the pleasure of being joined today with someone who inspired not only Nicole and I to go into education and really is, I honestly think my relationship with him is one of the reasons I truly enjoyed Molloy so much. But someone who has impacted the lives of, I don't know, Bob, you did 36 years at Molloy, so it's got to be thousands of students at this point that have come in to have interactions with you or benefited from the programs that were started at Molloy by yourself and your team. The countless athletes that can credit their sport even being at Molloy because you were the athletic director. So I'm really excited to be sitting today with former vice president of student affairs, former athletic director, former softball coach and women's basketball coach. I don't know if I missed anything. And teacher, criminal justice professor at Molloy College, Mr. Bob Houlihan. Hi, Bob.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having me. I'm excited. First of all, just to see you, both of you, and you guys look great, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I know. I feel like I'm looking at you. You haven't aged a bit, and I haven't.
Nicole looks much better than you do, by the way.
She always has. I've upgraded. I'm way out of my league on this one. I am well aware of that. But so now, just to kind of, because I was doing research on you, Bob, which was very easy. I was doing some research on you, and I feel like I knew a lot about your background, but when you started at Molloy, was Molloy a second career for you?
Oh, yes. Originally I was a detective in New York City Police Department. And while I was there, my niece actually started the softball team at Molloy, and Kathy McGuire. So she knew that I played basketball and softball my whole life, and I used to travel a lot to play softball. So she called me up one day and she said, "Oh, we have a game. You want to come and watch us in the Rockville Center?" So I said, "Sure." So I went down there and I watched the game, and the guy who was coaching, I won't mention his name because he's still at school, he said to me, "I don't want to do this anymore. Do you want to take over the team?" So I said, "Sure." So I took over the team. That was the last game of the year. And I took over the team as of September 1980.
And you were still working in the police force as a detective when you started coaching at Molloy? Wow. So then when you retired from the police force, is that when you kind of came more into the Molloy community and took a role as an athletic director?
Well, yes. What happened was I was coaching, and I was in the gym one day playing basketball with some guys, and the head of the phys ed department came by, and she said, "Oh, I need a man to teach some phys ed classes. Are you interested?" So I said, "Sure." So I started teaching some phys ed classes. And then about 3 years later, I retired from the police department. And it was something I loved. I still love my time there. But it was just other things I wanted to do with my life. So I opened up a private security consulting business. And I was doing security consulting for the diamond industry. And at the same time, I wanted to get a doctorate in psych. So I ran out of money. So I started taking some hypnosis courses, and I was working with some professional athletes, baseball athletes at the time. So I was doing a lot of different things. And then the opportunity came up for Molloy full time. No, actually, and then I started to coach women's basketball too. And then the next year, the opportunity came up full time. So I gave up the other business that I had, and I came to Molloy full time. I took a beating salary-wise, but I got crushed. But it was what I wanted to do. It was what I loved, being with young people. And so that's what I did.
And when you started at Molloy, it was the Molloy started as an all-female school, so it was kind of behind in terms of their male sports. You actually added, what was it, 9 sports when you were an athletic director and with your team that you had in Molloy Athletics? Was it 9 total sports that you added to the school?
I'm not sure. I think it was 9. It was men's and women's soccer, men's and women's lacrosse, um, men's and women's cross country, track and field, men's and women's track and field, men's and women's rugby. That's it.
Bob, I have to say,
Wound up being one.
Be here if not for you, Bob. That's how we met.
I know. It's always fun to see all the people who have met at school after they get married and they're in their careers, etc. It's fun to look back on them. See how nervous they were initially getting together, and, or the guys saying, "Oh, like she's really hot, I like her," and or the opposite, And then seeing them get together.
You know better than anybody, Nicole did not make it easy on me trying to get a date with her. She was way too organized and doing student government presidency, and I was just sitting there like, I play rugby.
Well, president of the rugby club. That counted.
But
Bob, we were actually reminiscing on our Molloy orientation when we all came in as freshmen, and you were on stage, and how you were so kind, open, and welcoming, and you even gave out your cell phone number. Like, that's a true leader, you cared,
I'll never forget that day. You were like, "Here's my cell phone number. If you ever need a ride, give me a call." And I was like, I really want to take him up on that offer, but I don't want to bother him.
Unfortunately, not enough people did. I mean, a lot of people did. And it was good because I never say anything as to who I picked up. But not enough people took advantage of it.
I loved your style of finding other kids on campus. And one of the quotes that I picked up in researching you, and I know that sounds weird, it's like, you researched me? But, Bob, I've had the pleasure of kind of, as we graduate, we obviously haven't stayed in touch as much as I would love, but when I was at Molloy, I felt like no matter where you went on campus, you were there. You were always out on campus, always on the grounds, always talking to kids. And one of the quotes that I found from you, it said that rather than talk to, one student at a time, find one student who can bring a following with them. What was kind of your thought process behind that as you started to really build student life and campus life at Molloy?
My thought was that I wanted to grow campus life by multiplication and not by addition. So I could spend, I'll use you two guys as an example. So I could spend some time recruiting Augie, but he's one person, he doesn't have any followers. So I spend time over a period of a week or two. But if I go to Nicole and she's a leader and she has other people following her, I spend the same amount of time. But when you come to an event, you bring yourself. When she comes to an event, she'll bring 15, 20 people. Mm. So I felt that I was adding by multiplication and not by addition. So it takes time to walk around and see who the leaders are on campus. And that's not hard to do, but just it's time consuming. And then you zero in on those people.
What were some of the things that you looked for in a particular leader? Because as you said that, I'm thinking back to myself when I was at Molloy. I did not consider myself a leader, but I feel like you did give me quite a bit of opportunity to get involved in school events, and whether it was the Molloy night and where we had donors come in, and I would walk around with some of the other student athletes on campus and and ask for donations, and or maybe it was doing stuff in Mr. Molloy or whatever it might have been. What was, not about me, but what is it that you look for in people? Because I feel like Nicole and I are very different in our leadership abilities and our leadership methods and how we do things. So what were some of the things that you looked for in a leader?
I think you look for character. I think is really important. I think that ethics is really important. I think that you look for somebody who likes people and likes to communicate, who can communicate, and who does so willingly. Somebody who'll go out of their way, who's kind and considerate. I'll give you one example of, I can remember being in Wilbur Lobby one day, and there was a young girl there who had some problems. She had some special needs, and she needed some help. And 2 or 3 guys from the lacrosse team kind of adopted her and took care of her. And I said, these are the guys I want. And the same thing happened with men's basketball and women's basketball and rugby, etc. And with the education club. Those are the type of people I was looking for. People who really loved people and who would go out of their way to help them. And potential. People who I said, wow, you know, that person might be just shy, but there's something about them. I know they have potential, and go after them. So it's 3, 4 different groups of people that you're going after, but eventually you win them over and bring them in and develop them. And I think the key to leadership is always development. You have to develop people, and you have to develop yourself. I mean, I still read a book every 2 weeks on leadership. I just love it. I enjoy it, and it's fun.
I love it.
That's awesome. When it comes to, you know, our podcast and what we embody and what we hope to portray here is mental toughness and leadership. That's why you were the first person, Bob, that came to our mind when it came to, like, who can we pick their brain? Yeah. But I guess I would ask, definitely talk more a little bit about building a culture, because we can ask anybody that went to Molloy with us. When you think of Molloy, you automatically associate Bob Houlihan. And Anthony's right, you were everywhere. You were always thinking of the students and what they need and how to incorporate fun. And how would you say is the best way to build that strong, tight-knit culture of just everybody being there for each other?
I think it starts off with very simple, basic things. Taking time to talk to people. One of the things I can remember when I was up for the job of VP, I can remember telling the committee that was interviewing that I didn't want to stay behind my desk. I wanted to be out and walk and talk and find out what's happening on campus. If people don't know you, they're not going to come in to talk to you. You have to get out there. You have to talk to people. So that's really what I did, and started at, and building the culture started at orientation, and just making an attempt to bring people in who were fun. A simple thing like smiling. You smile at somebody, they smile back at you. I mean, how simple can that be? It's so simple. So that, asking people at orientation to, if somebody's coming out the door, hold the door open for them. And if somebody holds the door, say thank you to them. It's just small things that eventually build and build and build. And eventually you have a culture. And I started this a long time ago, and I still have people come back and say, "Oh, I still hold the door for people," or "I miss." What you guys know, Erin. Erin used to work in our office.
Oh yeah.
One of the first things Erin played softball for me, and well, she didn't really. She got hurt, never played the game, but she went to work at another school.
Yes, Bob. You're retired now. It doesn't matter.
She went to work at another school, and then she was there for about 5 or 6 years. I'm sorry, I apologize. She was there for about 5 or 6 years, then came back to Molloy, and I took her around campus. And the first thing she said to me after we finished the tour, she said it was so refreshing and so nice to have people hold the door for you, or when you held the door for somebody to say thank you. And it makes a difference. I used to go around picking up paper off the ground at school and throwing it in the trash bin. Well, people see you doing it, they start doing it. And it makes a difference. And that's the start of building a culture.
I was just going to say that the trickle down effect is so real, because
Absolutely.
as everything rises and falls on leadership, it's so cool to see that you started that culture and the whole entire campus started holding the door and treating the place with respect. And that's everybody's favorite part about Molloy. I know all of the Molloy listeners right now are like, oh yeah, everyone held the door, because it just makes you feel welcome. And that's where it starts, really.
Absolutely. It really does. So,
I think from just hearing that, it's like I remember all my times at Molloy. College can get so scary, right? For especially as a freshman when you're coming in, and I just remember feeling so in like this my own little world at Molloy, even though I commuted to school every day. And that's when I started there. There was no residence halls or anything, but when I went to that campus, it's almost like I didn't want to leave. My classes could be over, rugby could be over, but I kind of just wanted to hang out in the AR. I wanted to go check out what was going on by the fields or downstairs in Kellenberg by the education students. And you started to never want to leave, and you wanted to go to the events. You wanted to be a part of whatever was happening at Molloy. And I do credit you a lot with that. I think you look back and you see, I don't remember a day where I didn't run into you on campus or see you there. And when you think, well, if the vice president of the school is the one picking up some trash when he sees it, taking the time to say hello, getting to know some people, well, then I guess I could do my part as little old freshman, little old sophomore in the school, not knowing which end is up, to try and get to meet new people and do that. And I think that's so key to anybody who's listening right now. If you're starting something and you're starting a business or you're starting a team and you're trying to recruit people to it, well, you need to first be the ideal recruit. You have to be the leader first, and then you'll attract people who want to be a part of it. Nobody want to be in business or follow somebody who's not doing the right things. And it made it really easy to do what you asked us to do, Bob. I don't actually think you actually ever asked us to do anything.
Right, because
I don't remember him actually requesting me to do anything. I think we just did it.
He set the example, and we said, well, we'll just do what he does.
That's the idea. So then it becomes your idea.
Yep.
So you buy into it, and I don't have to say anything. One of the main things in leadership is you buy into the person, and then you buy into the ideas. And that way, the people who are buying in have a vested interest because they feel it's their idea. I want to do this. I wasn't pushed or coerced or anything. So.
Very true. I have to ask, because Bob, you're a renowned public speaker. You were just saying before we hopped on here that you're still public speaking today in somewhat retirement. What if you could give 3 tips on public speaking? Because if anyone's ever heard Bob, it's incredible. It's quite the experience. What kind of tips would you give on public speaking to really command a room and engage the audience?
I think you have to be sincere. I think you have to put the time in. I think you have to, well, I find if I'm doing a half-hour presentation, I'll probably take me 4 or 5 hours to prepare for that. And I always try and have at least 50% more information than I give out, just in case that there are questions, etc. And practice, practice over and over again. My wife, I think, gets tired of me
I was just going to say that.
listening to me in another room going over a presentation. And eye contact. There are just so many small things that are into it. Practice, I think, is the key. And getting out there and allowing yourself to make mistakes. You don't want to, but you're going to. And seeing what works, what doesn't work. And looking at people and saying, wow, I can steal that from this lady. This she wasn't good at. I'm going to ignore that. But this I can use. It's good. This guy was terrific. So.
When you look back on your career at Molloy, what is because you are a Lifetime Achievement Award winner. I forgot to mention that in his intro. I mean, the guy has done more things in his second career than some people do in their entire life. But, at Molloy, what was the one thing that I know there's so many things. This is a tough question. What was the one thing you're most proud of when you look back on the amount of time and service that you gave to that community?
It's actually a pretty easy question to answer. It honestly is. It's keeping in contact with the students. I had somebody call me up the other day. She played softball for me in 1981. I mean, she's got to be in her mid to late 50s. And she was calling me, asking me some questions about some stuff with her son. So it's that type of thing. I just got off, literally, I swear this is true. I just got off the phone with somebody who's a lieutenant in the police department. And he had played basketball for us, and he took a couple of my leadership classes, and he was asking me some questions about leadership. And he graduated 23 years ago. So that's the fun part, and that's the most satisfying part for me to look back on.
It's just crazy to see how, you went to a softball game in 1980 and that turned into a 36 career plus in community and school leadership and inspiring so many. And I think that, do you ever sit back and, I know you're a very humble person, so you probably don't do this, I don't know, but do you ever sit back and think about the amount of lives that you have actually touched? Because it's more than just, yeah, we had a direct connection with you, but every single student that I've had is impacted by Bob Houlihan because of the things that I learned at Molloy. So do you ever take a minute and think about that?
No, I think about I think about the kids that I couldn't reach. And it still bothers me that for some reason I couldn't connect with somebody, and maybe they quit school or they got in trouble or something. Um, so that's the part that I think about. How could I have, what could I have done to have reached that kid? So
I'm
I
sure,
don't think about the other way.
I'm sure you self-reflect a lot, right? I mean, how would you say that that's impacted your journey and your growth and everything?
Self-reflection?
Yeah, like I just heard the questions that you're asking yourself
Yeah.
to improve yourself.
Well, yes, it makes you want to improve. It makes you want to get better. If you're still thinking about the good things that you did yesterday, you haven't done enough today.
Mm.
And you have to do something today to get better. I'll give you an example. For the last 3 years or so, I send out a quote every night. I'm a night person. So I send, or a saying or something. I send out somewhere between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the morning. I send it out to all of my 5 grandkids and some of their friends. Anybody who wants to listen, and just to make somebody think, oh, I can be better. I can grow, and you know, and it's fun to hear some feedback from that from people. Um, so
What's it's so cool to hear that you're doing that, and I almost wish that I was one of your grandkids so I can get
I
some of
know,
those text
right? Can
messages.
you add us to that list and can send us stuff?
text me your numbers. I'll
Yeah.
send it out every night. I'll add it to.
But so obviously the world right now is in, you almost want to say it's in complete chaos, but I like to say if you walk outside, for the most part, everybody's pretty normal. It's the news that's a little nuts sometimes. But what are you doing to kind of, obviously retirement, I hate that word for you because you sound like you're more busy now or pre-COVID in retirement than you were when you were working. You were doing speaking, you were just talking about with Nicole and I, speaking engagements all over the place. But what would be some tips for people during COVID, during this quarantine, that they can stay motivated in a time where it's kind of hard to do that? It's hard to stay motivated. It's hard to stay positive. What are some things that you're doing in order to keep yourself kind of positive and maintaining that motivation?
Again, I think preparing for when this whole thing is over and being ready to make an impact, developing new dreams, new things to do. I kind of think that you plant a seed in your brain for an idea, and the idea kind of morphs into a dream, and then pursue that dream. And in order to pursue it, you have to actively work at it. Because our dreams don't just disappear; they kind of fade away over time, but we can't let them fade away. So I try and keep writing and keep reading and doing workshops, and um, I send them into to uh, to school all the time. I don't know if they use them or not, but I send them in. I hope that they do, and I prepare that way for when this is over.
I like that. I really do. I love what you said there, that our dreams don't necessarily die. They kind of just fade off. And the last episode of our podcast, we talked a lot about dreaming and going after something and not just settling through life, because you really only get one shot at this thing, as far as we know so far, right? So there's got to be something new to fight for along the way. And I love that you said that. That's really powerful. It's that you don't even realize when it's happening too, right? That your dream is slowly starting to kind of get distracted and fade away. And I think that was something that Nicole really encountered a lot of when she decided to retire from teaching and start her own business with us. And that was scary.
Sure.
You know,
What you said there reminds us you have to be intentional about it. You know, it's work to dream. It doesn't just happen.
Right. You have to work at it. And that's why I was saying what you did yesterday is not as important as what you're doing today and tomorrow. You can't rest on what you did yesterday. That's in the past. So now is the time to get better and to learn more and to do more.
if someone doesn't listen to the whole podcast, that 10-second segment right there of what Bob just said should be all you need to stop making excuses. It's like, what you did yesterday, yeah, that's great. What are you doing right now and tomorrow actually matters. I love that. Oh man, and it's crazy that you hear someone who did 36 years at a college and a whole career before that still thinking like that today. I mean, Bob, you're only 22 years old, so you've got your whole life ahead of you to be doing these things. I know a lot of people with a lot more, time in their day that make more excuses than what we just heard there. And that's amazing. Kind of a fun question here and something, I mean, because we're going to start wrapping up here, but what books have you read during quarantine? What's your favorite book so far that you've read? Because I know you're an avid reader. You said you're reading probably a new book every 2 to 3 weeks.
Oh my God, I can't even think of. There's so many books out there on leadership. I like John Maxwell. His ideas are very simple, straightforward, and he's very easy to read. So I think he's really good for high school kids, for example, to get into. And he draws a lot of analogies and uses sports and athletics, which most younger people can get to. So I think starting off, I like with him. Rudy Giuliani wrote a great book on leadership. Winston Churchill, wow. I mean, he's written some amazing, well, he's dead now, but he wrote some amazing things about leadership. And can you get a better leader than Winston Churchill? I don't think so. So I like Churchill and a number of other people. I like whoever I'm reading at the time. You talk about grit. Kevin Sheehan has written some good stuff. I can't think of the woman's name at Yale University. Duckworth? Gail Duckworth, I think it is. She wrote a book on grit, which I think you're coaching now, right, Augie?
Yeah, coaching.
I'll text you the name of the book. I think it's a must for anybody who is a parent or working with young kids or who's coaching. It's a must read.
I gotta get that. We're holding it in suspense, the title, so that none of our listeners can get it and only me, so I can use it to beat everybody.
If you want to hold on a second,
Bob's on the move. Oh man, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in that library.
I was upset because my wife threw out a lot of my books. She wouldn't let me bring them down to Florida. Angela Duckworth, it's Grit.
I love it.
The Power of Passion and Perseverance.
I'm totally
fabulous.
So,
okay.
I guess, is there any, I have one last question I'm gonna ask him, but Bob, what's your, a lot of the big leaders that you read about and that, I watch on TED or we watch together, and they all tell us the same thing. Well, not tell us, they tell the world the same thing. That they operate on a written plan or some kind of plan and vision for how they lay out their day, their week, their month, and obviously into the next years of their life. Do you do a lot of planning? Is that something that's a part of your routine, that you have a plan that you're reading and then that you're implementing each day?
What I do when I'm really busy, the busier you are, the more you need, I think, the more you need a routine, and the more you need to be writing down stuff. Um, so when I know I'm busy, I write myself notes the day before. I want to do this at this time, this at this time. Uh, and but I also, whenever I'm doing that, I make time for myself. So I make time that I have some time to spend with my wife. I make time that I make sure I get down to the beach. I make sure that I go to the gym. And you have to keep yourself fresh. So I make a list, and then I try and do some learning, something where I can do some good for somebody, and something where I can just talk and relax, and some research.
I love it. I love that you make time to learn. I think something that a lot of people get caught up in, I know I'm guilty of this, is through the workday. And then with Nicole, I'm working full time, but then we're building a business together. By the time you get home, are you leaving any time for yourself, number one, to spend with your wife, but number two, to actually spend some time in thought and learn and expand your mind a little bit? I think that I definitely struggle with it. I know some of our listeners do, is getting caught up in like the rat race of go to work, go to bed, wake up, go to work, go to bed, wake up. It's definitely something that I struggled with.
Well, that's why I go to the beach every day, because I used, until just recently, I hurt my knee. I was running on the beach every day for 20 minutes, half an hour. Now I walk for half an hour. But that's the time that I do my thinking, my reflecting, and I'm focused on that at that time.
I love it. I love it.
It's kind of like my me time, I guess.
I love it.
It's important.
Are you still playing softball?
No, you know what I find that when I get, this is going to sound ridiculous too, but I find that when you get as good as you can at something
I love it.
and it starts to decline, I stop it.
You stop at
And
the
I
high point.
find, yeah, same thing with basketball. So what I'll do is I'll try and do something else and improve as much as I can at that.
Nice.
I hate the thought of going out playing softball. You hit a ball through the infield, and I was always quick, so I could wind up on second base because the outfielders played so deep. When I couldn't do that anymore,
That was it. You're hanging him up. You're not pulling the Michael. Nobody wants to remember Michael Jordan in his Washington Wizards uniform, right? They want to remember Jordan in the Bulls years. So we're going to remember Bob Houlihan's softball career as the Chicago Bulls Bob Houlihan, Washington Wizards Bob Houlihan. Well, Bob, I really do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. Like I said, if you're listening, I haven't met anybody who's retired that is as busy as this guy. I know that you have a lot of travel plans that you talked about that I'm sure you're going to be redoing the moment all these quarantines are over and stuff like that. But one thing that Bob, didn't mention here, and we didn't get into it, is he actively is giving back to his community. He volunteers and speaks at a homeless shelter. He volunteers and speaks at a drug rehabilitation center. He speaks to kids quite frequently, and I'm sure I think you do public speaking workshops with Molloy still. There's a lot of things that he's doing to give back in his community. And if you want to know when those things are, just look up Bob Houlihan. He's literally famous. So you could pretty much find a lot of that stuff up there. And I encourage you, if you want to know more about Bob and his story and what he's meant to the Molloy community, reach out to somebody from Molloy and ask them what they know about Bob Houlihan, and they could probably spend an hour or two just talking about the impact they've made. I know personally for me, as a little bit of a troublemaker early on in my college career, just in my own life, right? Having Bob there as kind of a mentor, and not someone I talk to every day, but someone who I knew had my back, I knew cared a lot about me. It made all the world a difference. And really, I count my mentors, right? I can count my mentors on one hand. And Bobby, you're definitely on there as someone that inspired me and I look up to tremendously for how I lead our team and our business, how I lead my team that I'm coaching, how I talk to our students and stuff like that. So I really do appreciate it. I really do.
Oh, thank you. This has been fun. It's always fun talking with people back from school, and especially the students. So thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I love you guys, and I'm so thrilled at what you guys are doing now with your business and getting started, and with this podcast. That's fabulous. It really is.
Thank you so much. The podcast was nerve-wracking, but we're having fun doing it. It's the feedback has been great, and more people are picking it up from week to week and catching up with it. It's been really fun. Just kind of sharing some of the things that we're doing, and the impetus behind it was so many of these people have podcasts and they write about leadership are at such a high level, and what they write is great and what they have is great. We're like, well, we're kind of on our beginning of our journey here. We want people to follow along with our journey and see the downfalls and the successes, and we hope to be a little bit more relatable for people. So, but we appreciate your support too. And I hope you're going to listen in now, because you got to catch your interview that's going to drop on Friday. This is going to be exciting. You're now going to be even more famous than you already are, Bob. Your wife, you're going to be walking red carpets. It's going to be insane.
I think I'll listen to all of the other podcasts that you have, and maybe skip this one.
Well, Bob, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bob. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate
Worth
it.
a ton. Thank you.
Love you both.
Love you. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you.